We continue learning Dirshu Mishnah Berurah, Hilchais Tefillah. Today we begin in Siman Tzadi Vav, in which the Mechaber coins the Siman Sheyimna Kol Tirdois Kedei Sheichavin. You should remove all tirdois, all burdens, in order to daven. Says the Mechaber in Tzivalik Shu Mispalo Yechaz Biyad Tefillin. When you're davening, you should hold tefillin. V'lo sefer nor sefer mikasvei kodesh. V'lo kaira maleo, not a full plate. V'lo sakin, not a knife. U'ma'is v'kikar, nor a money or a loaf. Why? Because if you're holding something, your mind is on the item that it shouldn't fall. If you're tired of Ismail to come and say, and you're thinking about that, you're not going to have good kavanah. The lulav bizmane, lulav on sukkah, it says mutter lechos biyada kim she'achiza biyada mitzvah inu niter b'shilai. The holding it is a mitzvah, and therefore it's not going to remove your kavanah. If anything, it would aid your kavanah. Says Mishnah Berurah over here, Sivkat and Aleph Kshehu Mispalo. Primagadim kasav hu adin. Similarly, Kriyish Mapsuka Zimra should not be holding anything in your hands. If you messed up and you were holding something, you don't have to daven again. Unless you know you didn't have kavanah b'avis the first bracha shonas, right? Then you would have to daven again. And as we're going to see, unfortunately, because we don't have kavanah nowadays, we're not going to daven again either way. Shabbos, when you think you can perkan, the sheikh sibra is allowed to hold the sefer Torah. Why? Because when you say you can perkan, the kavanah is you're davening for the Loim Dei Torah. It's not that you're holding the Sefer Torah to watch it. You're holding the Sefer Torah to aid in your tefillah. So again, it's not going to be called something that's going to remove your kavanah or anything. It would aid your kavanah. Vavi kamay lulav, and it's just like the lulav izman. Same thing is by Baruch HaMachaydesh. Sheikh Sibra is allowed to hold the Sefer Torah again, because it's not that I'm watching a Sefer Torah now. The Sefer Torah is part of the tefillah. Sivkat and Gimel v'lo Sefer Kisvei HaKodesh Adin calls Farm Shalanu, or a Kair Malay of Sivkat and Dalid. Why Shaliba Aleh Shleivach Menu? Because you don't want the plate to spill. Ubesakin by a knife. You don't want it to fall into your leg. You don't want them to scatter. Even if they're together, so they're not going to scatter, but you're afraid they might get lost. Unless he's holding it in a manner that he's certain it's not going to get lost. Poor halacha, you should not sit a child in front of you during davening for the same reason, because you're going to be focused on the child and not on your tefillah. Sivkat and hey, uma'is v'kikar v'tafka honey. Why? Because these are entities, money or food, that if they fall, they're going to get ruined. Avol shari dvarim mutar lechos, you hold other items. V'yishayim dani lav dafka. Ela orcha demel zanakit v'odin shlein little shum davar b'yadash hatzfila v'chein hiskim ataz. So the second opinion holds you should not hold anything. But certainly, one should not hold something that's going to get damaged, because then it's like money or the loaf of bread. One should not be holding his computer while he's davening Shemona Esrei, because you're afraid he might drop it. Let's say you're afraid someone's going to steal the Torah. Can you daven while holding it tzarachi, and we see how extreme this halacha is? You might not even be able to hold the Sefer Torah. Maybe it's allowed. Sivkot and Zayim mutar lechos nafal sefer al haaretz v'niach lechavin. You're middle of Shemona Esrei. A sefer falls and you can't have kavanah. Mutar like bi'ak shesiyah bracha shu oimid ba. You're allowed to pick it up when you finish the bracha. Siyim bracha when you finish the bracha in the middle of davening. V'im lavach lo yafsik. And if not, you should not be mafsik. Kol shkein she'ina likritz etzba ki yoytze b'shat tefillah. Certainly you shouldn't make motions and whatnot in the middle of davening. And Misal Esbal Shon Esim and Esbal, you began Shon Esim, I messed up. But Lech Lamakim Yadula Likach Misham Siddur. You're allowed to go to a place that you know there's going to be to get a siddur, cause you need a daven. It's definitely a tzarech of tefillah, and perhaps this could happen maybe in Rosh Chodesh when I say Al V'Yavai, maybe in the Sefer Svei Tshuva, you have to say all the insertions and you don't know them by heart. So you're allowed to go get the siddur even in the middle of Shemona Esrei. And we continue, and we conclude today's shir with Sif Beis. Says the Mechaber in Sif Beis. Motor lechos machzer tefillos biyadu b'shashem mispal. You're allowed to hold a sitter or a machzer of tefillos while you daven. Why? Because you're holding it to daven from it, so it's not going to remove your kavanah. Says the Rama, if you didn't have it in your hands before you started, you shouldn't go get it during davening to take it while you are davening. Unless it's prepared. If you know that it is there, then you're able to take it so that you can daven from inside the siddur. Says Mishnah Berurah, again, because it messes up your kavanah to go look in wherever you are looking for the siddur. Kasavata, says Mishnah Berurah. You should have marked off whatever you're davening. While you're davening, you should not be flipping around. Of course, nowadays, with our Siddurim that has everything in one area, we don't really have this problem, but it could happen. You shouldn't be flipping. Wait, where's the Alviyavli? I'm davening the wrong Shemona Esrei. You begin Shemona Esrei with the tefillah in front of you. Okay, he goes to Birkei Yosef, Rabbi Manshei Maisa, they're saying a specific tefillah like Anenu on a fast day, on Rosh Chodesh, on Motzei Shabbos Yantif, Shchal Yantif Motzei Shabbos, you have the siddur open in front of you. What do we do by Chazaras Hashatz? We already mentioned this, and now we see it again. Nachanushi, a siddur b'suach lefan of the siddur should be open. Leah says, "Nayim pakucha is al mashem mershas." So your ears can hear what the shas is saying, so you follow along with the siddur. And we, for a moment, go to the Dirshu. Where are the Dirshu's number 10 over here? Says the Dirshu. Here it is. The Pri Megadim. Let's go. Start Dirshu note number 1. Dirshu comments that the Pri Megadim says the halacha of not holding something in your hand is relevant even to Kriya Shema, even though the Shulchan Aruch before in Siman Samach Gimel explained you're allowed to do while you're davening, you're allowed to do in Kriya Shema. Still, Rav Elyashiv explains there it's referring to a case that you can't stop working, so you're allowed to continue working. But without that, you're not allowed to do anything. So therefore, even to hold an item should not be done. But we said by Yikaburkam, by Varcham HaChaydash, the Shatz called the Sefer Torah. What about to be mitzaref a katan for a minyan? The Mishnah Berurah wrote previously an interesting minhag in Siman Nevish in the Magen Avram that there was some sort of minhag that you would take the katan if he's holding a chumash in his hands. Says Rav Moshe Feinstein, what does it mean? L'chumash asli begalila ubizmanenu she'enoi ke'ilu chumashim. Nowadays we don't have a chumash that's made out on parchment. Yishlisis lo sefer Torah. Says Rav Moshe, give the child the sefer Torah. Filu mupasal. Fascinating. We don't really rely upon this. But says Rav Moshe Feinstein, what do? You put the Sefer Torah down, and the kid hold on to that Chaim because he can't hold the Sefer Torah while we are davening. Very, very interesting. Similarly, the Sefer Torah based on Shanis and Sukkos as well. It's part of the davening that is allowed in Purim. Says Bir Alacha that Ish La'achzer Sefer Torah before you return the Sefer Torah before the Megillah. Why? Because you're holding it too long, you're not going to be able to have kavanah for listening to the Megillah. With regarding to Tkiyah Shefer and Rosh Hashanah, the Ramban Tav Kuf Sadi explains we return the Sefer Torah only after the Tefillos. Why? Because we want to have the Sefer Torah, explains Rav Chaim Kanievsky on the Bima. Shetkiyas Nimshachas Man Muat. We're not worried Tkiyas are not so long, and therefore we can have the Sefer Torah out. Explains Ritva and Sukkah. What's the reason of Lulav? Shkim Shemitzas. Lulav, says the Ritva, are chavivin alav, even though it does remove your mind a little bit from davening, still it's not such a big deal. And the chavivas of the mitzvah, if anything, will aid your kavanah and not to do the opposite. Continues Dirshu number 5 is Vanenu, quoting the Shulchan Aruch and Tavrish and base. So who holds the lulav during davening looks like gaiva. Unless everyone knows he's a Talmud Chacham, we don't do that, perhaps during Hallel, but not during the whole davening. Says Mekar Chaim, via holding this Sefer Torah, your tchinos are more mikubal, and that's the reason why the Shliach Tzibur holds it by Mevarchim HaChodesh, by Yikum Burkan. And similarly, in Shlichon says Sefer Torah for another minyan, and there's a tircha for them to wait. Says Chaim Kanievsky, to not be mavatal a minik and wait till after Berachas HaChodesh. Holding the Sefer Torah Berachas HaChodesh is a real thing. And finally, we conclude, you shouldn't take anything in your hands while you're davening. Number 7, kama mitzvachas, or even a walking stick. Says the Aruch HaShulchan, you should have nothing in your hands while you daven. Again, because we want to be able to increase your kavanah as much as possible. Dirshu number 9. Now, let's say that sefer fell, and you can't have kavanah, so you want to go pick it up, you have to move your legs. So we say in Siman Kuf Dalid, if something is going to be messy of your kavana, very important klal that we finish, you're allowed to move even to pick it up, because again, that's all considered a tzeirech of the tefillah, even though you're moving your legs, because you can't daven if not, because there's a Sefer Torah on the floor. Similarly, as a screaming child, you got to get him out of shul. You're allowed to move your legs, even in the middle of Shemona Esrei, because that's all considered a chilek, part of the davening, in order to allow you to continue davening. And we said similarly in Dirshu number 10, let's say you don't, and this is the example we gave, you don't remember the Nusach of Al Anisim, says Chaim Kanievsky, this as well, you're allowed to go and get a sitter, even in the middle of Shemona Esrei, even though the Chiddush is, if you don't say Al Anisim, it's not Ma'akiv the Shemona Esrei. I said the example of Al Anisim, of Al V'Yavai, which Shachris Mincha is Ma'akiv. Says Rav Chaim, what about something that's not Ma'akiv? If you don't say Al Anisim, you don't repeat Shemona Esrei, so maybe you can't go get a sitter for that. Says Rav Chaim, you could still consider a seirech of the tefillah. Now, if you're able to be merami someone else to bring you the sitter, that is better than you yourself walking in the middle of Shemona Esrei, as we'll see in Siman Kuf Dalid, that if, as the example we just gave, there's a child screaming, it's better to be motioning to the kid to be quiet, or motion to someone who's not davening Shemona Esrei to take him out, and not that you yourself have to move in the middle of Shemona Esrei. And says the Dirshu number 12, the mashmayis over here, and mashmayis later on in Siman Kuf Dalid, is you're only able to do this if you know where the sitter is. Then you can look into the sitter and you can be able to daven. But if not, you have to daven Baal Peh. And Rav Chaim explains, if you're not going to know what you're doing, you're allowed to even go look for the sitter. It's not dafka if you know exactly where the sitter is. Now the question is, what do you do afterwards? So you get your sitter to go back to your seat, and maybe you daven right there. Says Rav Chaim Kanievsky, it's not meant for your kavana. So go right there. You went to this farm shack, you found the sitter, you take it out, and you finish one answer. It might look a little weird, but that's what you're supposed to do. But if it's, like I said, it's going to be a little weird, and you're not going to be able to have kavana, then you're even allowed to take the sitter back to your seat and daven over there. And finally, let's say you're not able, let's say you don't know the halacha. Another very classical shayla, with this we conclude Dirshu number 13 over here. If you're not sure, a din in tefillah, you don't know, was I supposed to repeat? Do I not repeat Shemona Esrei? So says the Dirshu over here, you're allowed to as well, according to the Shulchan Aruch and Siman Kuf Dalid, to go and look at a sefer to know the halacha. And let's say you don't know, you're allowed to even ask someone. You're allowed to ask the Rav. You walk over to the Rav. You said, I just in the middle of Shemona Esrei. I don't know if I said this, if I said that. Do I go back? Do I not go back? In the middle of your Shemona Esrei. Again, because it is a Serach Tefillah, and even if we are doing all this, it's going to take them out of time to finish Shemona Esrei. Rav Yashiv explains that you only go back to the place that you interrupted. You don't have to repeat the whole Shemona Esrei. Again, as this is all considered a Serach of the Tefillah. And B'siyat Shmaya, we'll pick it up in Siman Sadi Zayin in the next Shiur.